call the Lehman board now.
It is a complicated situation where
The age is opening. If they don't announce, the market goes in the toilet.
we have to consider the appropriate role of government here. Can I, as chairman of SEC, move forward?
Are like the gang that can't shoot straight. This is your job.
That was a clip from the 2011 film Too Big to Fail. Greed at the highest levels of the corporate world caused untold pain for millions of Americans during and after the 2008 financial crisis.
That injustice and similar failures are the subject of a new book with a title we can't fully say on air. Let's call it The Chicken Bleep Club: Why the Justice Department Fails to Prosecute Executives. It's published by Simon & Schuster, a division of CBS. We're joined by the author, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jesse Eisinger. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about the title to start with, the title we can't say. But it comes actually from something that was said, I believe, by James Comey, the former FBI director and former U.S. attorney.
Exactly. 15 years ago, when he became the U.S. attorney in the Southern District, he gathered all of his criminal prosecutors together and he gave them a speech. And these guys are the best of the best, and they think of themselves as the best trial lawyers in the country. And he said, how many of you have never lost a case? Bunch of hands shoot up because they're so proud of themselves. And he says, me and my buddies have a name for you guys. You are the Chicken S Club. What he meant was, your job is not about winning, it's about doing justice. And justice calls for taking on the most powerful, most ambitious cases.
So sometimes you're going to lose, and don't be afraid to lose.
Sometimes you're going to lose, and sometimes you have to lose to make a point.
When you talk about some of the biggest cases, 2003 is where things start with Enron. Successful prosecution, but you talk about in the book that it taught the wrong lesson. Explain that.
Right. So they prosecute all the top executives of Enron and all the accounting frauds of that era, but then they face a backlash again from corporations and the white-collar defense bar. They're lobbying against their powers. They say that they're cowboys, and they internalize that at the Department of Justice, and they become convinced that they've been overly aggressive about prosecuting corporate executives.
Which is why you see, I mean, you saw in the financial crisis, few, if any, prosecutions in the end.
Only one top corporate executive from one bank, Credit Suisse, was prosecuted. So that, I say that's a big failure, but I think it's worse than that because it goes beyond the banks and beyond the financial crisis to major companies, industrial companies, retailers, tech, pharmaceuticals. The Justice Department has lost the will and ability to prosecute top corporate executives.
But in the case of the financial crisis, where there was a public outcry and you had a public demand, in fact, why didn't we see prosecution?
It's shocking, but they really didn't look. They didn't marshal the resources. And my argument is that they've sort of focused on settling with corporations for money rather than prosecuting individuals. The problem with that is it really undermines the sense of justice in America because you're not holding people accountable. And these guys pay checks, and it's not even the executives paying checks, it's the shareholders.
Right, and essentially it becomes a business expense.
Exactly, it's a cost of doing business, and the system is broken. And this is the flip side of inequality in America, where we prosecute some people too aggressively, nonviolent drug criminals, the poor, people of color, and then we let other people off, rich, powerful corporate executives.
We did see Dodd-Frank legislation come out of the 2008 financial crisis, but is that legislation actually having any impact?
It has had a modest impact. I think it's inadequate. And the problem is, one of the problems is that it wasn't coupled with prosecution. So I think it undermined the legitimacy of the reforms. The banks are safer than they used to be, but now there already is going to be a rollback of that legislation, which is already inadequate.
You talk about 200 pages in, you refer to revolving doors between private law firms and the Department of Justice. What happens there?
So the young prosecutors in the Department of Justice work there for 6 or 8 years roughly, and then they go, almost all of them go to representing corporations at major law firms in D.C. and New York. Then they work for a number of years, and then they almost all come back to the Department of Justice to be in senior positions. It's a revolving door, and the dirty little secret of corporate law enforcement is that we have outsourced and privatized it to these law firms that recruit prosecutors. And they also are, it's as if we would let Pablo Escobar hire a law firm in Medellin to investigate whether he's a drug dealer or not.
Jesse Eisinger, thank you very much. Interesting book, interesting topic.
Thank you.